Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Chase Chewning, and this is your weekly source for inspiring content from people who are putting a purpose to their passion and truly living a life ever forward. This is Ever Forward Radio. Welcome back, Ever Forward Nation. Thank you all so much for joining me again this week. I have been really excited to present this episode and share this week's guest, Mr. Mark Sisson, the founder of Mark's Daily Apple and the Primal Blueprint. For any of my paleo friends out there, you will definitely recognize the name, recognize the brand, and the incredible message that Mark brings to the table and his great way of sharing this type of eating, this type of lifestyle without really pushing any secret or different agenda other than just promoting general health and wellness in a way that a lot of people, I think, misunderstand, especially in the paleo gluten-free realm. And we're going to be highlighting Mark's latest release, his new The Keto Reset Diet. Reboot your metabolism in 21 days and burn fat forever. An amazing informational and instructional cookbook that I'll link down in the show notes for you guys. And for anyone interested in what I referenced in this episode about a previous interview with Elle Russ, she operates their Primal Blueprint podcast and is a great contributor to the Primal Blueprint content and a lot of information with Mark on Mark's Daily's Apple blog. I'll go ahead and link that episode below. It was all about the hypothyroidism reset diet that I did a few months ago. Again, I'll link that down in the show notes for you. But before we jump into the episode, let's go ahead and give a special shout out to this week's iTunes Review of the Week. For any of you that are listening that find value and just love the podcast and the guests, I greatly appreciate any and all feedback. If you guys could head over to iTunes for my iOS users and just tap that little 5-star button. It takes about 2 seconds. Leave it a 5-star rating. And if you would like for the opportunity to maybe have the review read out on the air or just want to leave me a little more love, I greatly appreciate it. Go ahead and leave it a little quick review. It takes a couple seconds and then I'll upload straight up to iTunes. So this week comes from Charlotte 5Ever, and Charlotte writes, "Keep life positive. This podcast brings so many inspiring people to light and in general has changed my view on listening and communicating. What a great way to share positive messages about health and life in general." Charlotte, well, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. This is all about life in general. This is not only just health, wellness, but, entrepreneurship, business, strategy, communication. A lot of different areas that I have found value in seeking to better myself and then therefore seeking out experts in the field and writers and authors and producers and just other people that have given me value and have helped me live a life ever forward. So I'm glad that resonates with you. Please keep the reviews coming. So I'm actually sipping on my second glass of Organifi green juice today, and I want to go ahead and talk about them because I think they would be a great opportunity for anyone interested in improving their health, especially right out of the gate. For any of my followers, you know that every day I chug water, I chug Organifi green juice. It is just my favorite way to kind of help set my rhythm for the day. It gives me just amazing, immediate, sustained energy, and I just feel so much better after I take it. And this recent change of weather, kind of transitioning from summer into cooler weather into the fall, it kind of usually throws me off a little bit. I kind of feel like maybe I'm catching a cold or just, the seasons change and the body takes a little bit of an adjustment. So what I'm doing is actually giving myself an extra insurance plan, doubling down today and probably the next couple of days doing 2 servings a day of Organifi green juice. And you'll find with Organifi that it's completely non-GMO, gluten-free, soy-free, and vegan. So for any of you who maybe are familiar with Mark's work and trying to go paleo or just trying to reduce gluten or just do any type of diet elimination process, you would be well suited to try Organifi in that process. You can go ahead and head over to Organifi.com, use promo code EverForward. You are going to save 20% off your entire order, and that's any of their products, not just the green juice, but Organifi green juice has been one of my daily staples for years now. Cannot recommend it enough. Highly recommend you guys go check it out. Organifi is going to be hooking you up with a great discount. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode. Again, speaking with Mr. Mark Sisson about the Keto Reset Diet. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Ever Forward Radio. I am really excited to bring you an expert in the field of just self-exploration when it comes to diet, exercise, and getting back to human nature. And of course, I'm talking about and to Mr. Mark Sisson. Mark, how are we doing today?
Doing awesome, Chase. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It was such a great opportunity to, of course, talk to your partner there, Elle Russ. She is doing amazing things for Primal Blueprint, the podcast you all do and all the content you provide, and all of her work around the paleo thyroid solution. And I would love to just kind of pick up where we left off with her and just learn your background and kind of this, like I said, self-exploration of human genetics and what we're really meant and primed to eat and not eat, and then talk about your latest work and how you're just contributing to the world of health, wellness, diet, nutrition.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's go back to the beginning. I know we all just didn't come out of the womb extremely intelligent and knowledgeable of all things health and wellness. So I know with your background, you were an avid marathon runner, just a distance endurance runner. And one of the biggest things I picked up in learning more about your history was that on the outside, you were healthy. You were quote unquote running all the time. You were, in a good, healthy weight, but you had a lot of internal problems. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. No, that was my plight for a long time. I was always attempting to be as healthy and fit as I could get, assuming, as I did in those days, that fitness and health worked in parallel, in tandem. And so I read, anything I could get my hands on that indicated what I would need to do to get fit. Most of the work in those days was on aerobics. There's a lot of information on aerobic activity and how would you improve your heart rate and your longevity and your health in general by putting in a lot of miles on the bike or on the roads or in the pool. So I started running in my teens and started competing in track and cross country and then later in road races and ultimately in marathons. And of course I had to read all the books on diet and exercise and improving performance in that genre. So I got the early notion that the more carbohydrates that I could consume, the more I could carbo load, the more miles I could put in, and therefore I could be better at racing and running and train harder and longer and more frequently. And I did that. But as I got more and more fit and as I got faster and faster and able to race some of the best in the country, I was falling apart on the inside. I had arthritis in my feet and tendonitis in my hips and irritable bowel syndrome and gastroesophageal reflux or heartburn, upper respiratory tract infections multiple times a year. I got injured easily. I was a wreck. And, even though I made the cover of Runner's World magazine 3 times, looked great on the outside, but was literally dying on the inside. So around the ripe old age of 29, I quit running. I did segue into triathlons for a while and tried that, but ultimately just the same issues were cropping up and weren't getting resolved. So I retired from competing and kind of rededicated my life to figuring out ways in which I could be as strong and fit and healthy as possible with the least amount of pain, suffering, and sacrifice. And that led me down this path to research and to exploration and looking into modern genetic science and how the genes affect how we rebuild, repair, renew, regenerate, recreate ourselves on a daily basis. And the clues were all found in evolutionary biology. What did our ancestors do? How did they live their lives in order to create the sort of evolutionary adaptations that we possess to this very day? So that makes us basically hunter-gatherers still in terms of our gene sets, but living in this modern world that has all of its trappings and access to sugars and artificial sweeteners and artificial colors and environmental toxins and artificial lights that keep us up too late and sunscreens that prevent us from getting tan and creating vitamin D and all these weird things that we've created for ourselves that we thought was going to make life easier, but is somehow making life more difficult because we're not well.
Mark, it really sounds like you just condensed my entire health coaching practice paradigm into about 3 sentences.
3 long sentences, Jason. They were very long sentences.
Mark, I would love to pick up on a point you were talking about earlier there, how you were seemingly doing everything right. And I know for a lot of my listeners and for a lot of the people that I coach, this is the mindset. This is kind of the problem that a lot of us have is that we start to run. We do the cardio. We make these small steps into long strides, literally, and we feel like this is what we need to do. But on the outside, we're seemingly doing everything right. But on the inside, the body's not really adapting in the direction that we want it to. We're doing a lot of things physically, but we're not really doing a lot of things in the nutritional world that are matching these demands on our body. So what were maybe some of the telltale signs, symptoms, just mental state even that you were experiencing during this time where you thought you were on one path, but your body was on another?
Well, I mean, to your point, I think people want to do the right thing. People get frustrated when they truly want to do the right thing, but they don't know what the right thing is. And at some point, you have to take action, and you have to go down that path. And I went down the path of putting in lots of miles and eating complex, healthy carbohydrates and whole grains and all the things that the conventional wisdom of the day suggested were my best choices. Where it really started to affect me was, I guess, the arthritis was the first thing that I just couldn't run anymore. I couldn't run. I went from running 100 miles a week to hobbling through 20 or 25 miles a week of running because the arthritis in my feet was so bad.
Yeah.
So, for me, the biggest thing, and it took another 15 years to get this through my brain, was grains. I realized that grains were the cause of my arthritis. And when I gave up grains, which I had assumed up until then were healthy and good for me, and I defended my right to eat them in any form possible. Oatmeal for breakfast, whole wheat pancakes, whole wheat bread on sandwiches for lunch, whole wheat pasta.
You're saying a lot of healthy words, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners are partaking in.
Yeah, but I realized that those were the primary cause of a lot of what was going on with me. So when I gave up grains, my arthritis cleared up. It just literally went away. My irritable bowel syndrome that had driven my life, that literally dictated pretty much every move I made throughout the day, trying to figure out where the nearest bathroom would be if I needed it, that went away forever. Man. That was just life-changing, transformative. It was like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. So, that was the big aha moment for me, was this idea that certain things that we eat, even though we're used to eating them, even though we think they're not affecting us. Because I never tested positive for celiac. It wasn't like I was a celiac sufferer. I never had Crohn's. I just had severe gastric issues, IBS. But I was one of those people, once I gave up the grains, all my lingering maladies went away. And I thought to myself, well, geez, if I've been doing all this research and writing about this and reading it for years and years and years and still defending my right to eat grains,
sure, yeah.
In the face of all this research, I wonder how many tens of millions of people are having that same experience, thinking, well, it's not the grains, Mark. It's something else that's causing my obesity or my inflammation or my arthritis or my polycystic ovarian syndrome, or is leading to my type 2 diabetes, or is causing issues with calcification of my arteries. People just assume that this is a natural part of getting old or older, and it's a natural part of life, and they don't really stop and take a look at the inputs, whether they are the food that we're eating, or the amount of sunlight we're getting, or the amount of sleep we're getting, or the amount of weight-bearing activity we're doing. I mean, we can go back and look at cyclists, for instance, are notorious for having brittle bones because they don't do any weight-bearing activity.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
They're on a bike. So the bike is supporting them, and while their muscles are fairly strong, there's not a lot of weight-bearing activity, particularly in the upper body. And unless you give the body a reason to build strong bones, the body doesn't want to do that. So my whole career has been looking at these hidden genetic switches that we all have and figuring out how to turn them on in a good way, how to manifest, dense, strong bones, strong muscle, energy systems that are not sugar dependent, the ability to think clearly and cogently in the face of not eating meals on a regular basis, the ability to get the proper amount of sleep so that we don't wake up in a haze and a fog for the rest of the day. So I've been looking at all of these hidden genetic switches that we have, and that's been basically the primary focus of Mark's Daily Apple, my blog, over those years, is to uncover those hidden genetic switches and let people in on this kind of secret that doctors aren't really telling us about. I mean, it's no real, when you have your checkup at the doctor's office and you get the blood work back, or you get the blood pressure cuff taken off, or you step off the scale, the nurse or the doctor might say, well, it looks like you need to start eating better and exercising more.
This is the most profound medical advice I'm sure we've all received in our life at some time.
Yeah.
So when one thing that you said that really kind of struck me was that seemingly, on paper, you didn't have any diseases. You weren't diagnosed with anything. So I know a lot of people who are, hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, Hashimoto's. And so it takes that extreme level of a physiological problem in order for these changes to really take root, or even to have the awareness that, hey, I need to change what I'm doing, what I'm not doing, what I'm eating, what I'm not eating. In your case, could you maybe expand upon really what that process was to not technically have anything wrong with you other than how you kind of felt in your day-to-day activity and your preferred mode and intensity and frequency of exercise, to kind of just dissect your day, dissect your diet, and to really figure out what was working, what wasn't? How did you go through that process? Was it just kind of a food diary, diet elimination, an introduction of other food sources? How did you kind of bring this awareness to your eating habits?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I've been sort of self-experimenting for a long time, for 30 plus years. So for me to identify what it was that was going on, I first of all had to recognize that there was a problem. Again, I had assumed that my arthritis was a normal part of. I mean, by the time I did this, I was already in my 40s. So when I couldn't grip a golf club, or if I would meet you on the street, Chase, and I'd shake your hand, and then in the back of my mind would be cringing, thinking if you were going to squeeze my hand too hard and it was going to, crunch all my arthritic knuckles together. I mean, that's a sad commentary on life when we assume that that's a normal thing and there's nothing we can do about it. So I had to get past that assumption that I was headed down the path of aging. I had to get past the assumption that that these things, my IBS, which I assumed was mostly due to my type A nature and stress and my inability to deal with stress appropriately. I assumed that the arthritis was natural. I assumed that the heartburn was because of eating spicy foods. I had all these assumptions.
Some easy excuses, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't until I kind of realized, well, wait a minute, maybe there's something I can do about that. Because look, humans, we're designed, for better or worse, to get away with whatever we can get away with. There's a lot of people can eat a lot of candy and sodas and desserts and never gain weight and, quote, get away with it. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's some stuff going on inside them, some inflammation and stuff, but not appearing on the outside like, they don't get fat, they don't. And so people go, oh, aren't you lucky you can get away with that? So we do what we can get away with. And that certainly includes eating. So many people approach eating as this game where they say, okay, what's the most amount of food I could eat and not gain weight? Mm-hmm. Right? It's like people tend to be gluttonous. They tend to think, well, food is such a pleasure, and it's a gastronomical event, and it's this gustatory sensation, and I'm going to eat as much as I can until I'm either full or I know that I've eaten too much and I'll gain weight. Well, what kind of way is that to live your life? To go from one meal to the next thinking, what's the most amount of food I could eat? In other words, literally, what can I get away with? So when I pulled back from that, what can I get away with, and started to think in terms of I'd like my life to be better. My life was awesome, by the way, in my 40s. I had a thriving business. I had a family, a thriving family. I was energetic. I was working out a lot. But I had these moments where I'd wake up every morning in pain, and I'd have to, go to the bathroom first thing. Or I'd have heartburn after certain meals, but not others. I had this arthritis that affected my golf game. That's my excuse, Chase. That's why I don't play golf that well, because of my arthritis.
I blame my handicap on my arthritis.
Yeah, I blame my handicap on my handicap. But when I backed off of that and said, there's got to be I can do better than that. I want to live an awesome life. I don't want to have this arthritic pain in my knuckles. I don't want to still hobble for the first 20 minutes when I wake up in the morning. I don't want to be at the mercy of having to figure out where the next bathroom is. And so that's when I started to try these different and I'd already introduced healthy fats into my diet. I'd already cut way back on the total calories I was taking in. I'd already cut back on the trans fats and things like that. But the one thing I hadn't eliminated at that point was the grains. And so I just did a simple 30-day elimination diet, which is what I advise anyone and everyone to do. Try something for 30 days. You will notice a difference if it was affecting you. Mm-hmm. And again, the difference was so profound that I just could not go back. And it's been, whatever it's been now, 17 years. And I can't go back to where it was. Because if I try, if somebody presents me with a bread pudding, that they made or something, I can have 1 or 2 bites. But if I have 5 or 6 bites, I'm gonna feel it, like seriously, in the next couple of hours and maybe the next day. So I know where my limitations is. Back to that thing I just brought up. I know what I can get away with.
Isn't that an amazing thing? How once you make these changes and alter your state of being, your way of living, that the body adjusts and gets on this new track that it really was meant to be on. And it's so easy for us to just try to continue to get away with things by having cheat meals, cheat snacks. But I think you really hit the nail on the head in that once you adopt this new lifestyle, once you realize what your body wants and craves and thrives off of, once you deviate from that, it very quickly recognizes and reminds us, hey, stop trying to get away with shit.
Yeah, no, it's a good news, bad news thing. I mean, the good news is you've cleaned up your diet, you've reduced inflammation, you're trending toward an ideal body composition, you've developed the ability to burn fat so efficiently that you can skip a meal and not even think about it. But the bad news is if you go off that program, even a little bit, you'll notice it. You'll feel the pain. Mm-hmm. And you go, well, wait a minute, why am I all of a sudden feeling terrible when I didn't years ago when I used to live this life every day? How come I didn't feel terrible then? Well, the body just adjusts to the pain. It was there. The same things were happening. It just wasn't manifesting itself in nerve endings and signals like that. It wasn't, the body had deadened itself to that particular type of pain to allow you to keep on doing that inappropriate behavior. And that's the danger of a lot of these programs that people embark on, where they're eating a standard American diet day in and day out, and the body becomes used to it and doesn't. There are no signals left. You gain weight, you become inflamed, you have some of the manifestations. They'll show up if you have a calcium scan and you've got blockage in your arteries, or if you've got type 2 diabetes or you're trending that way, your A1C climbs up to 6s and 7s. I mean, those are all inward manifestations of it, but the sensation, the pain of it isn't commensurate with the amount of damage you're doing, because the body wants to not feel that pain. The body tends to deaden that sensation. Now you cut to the chase later on. Oops, sorry, I used your name.
It happens. Don't worry. You're not the first one. You won't be the last.
Yeah, and so years later, you've cleaned up your act, and now everything is working smoothly and functioning brilliantly, and you're more attuned to the sensations. And now all of a sudden you have that triple chocolate cake at 8 o'clock in the evening, and it's a huge piece, and it's 600 calories of pure sugar. Now your body goes into this mode like, okay, the heart, insulin secretion, heart rate increases, you start sweating, you can't sleep, you've got a little bit of a gastric issue with that much sugar and probably some processed grain, flour still in your gut. I mean, there's a lot of things that could go wrong that used to be part of your everyday life, and you never paid attention. But now all of a sudden, all the alarms are blaring, right?
It's hard to ignore, absolutely. Yeah. And was this kind of the inspiration behind the creation of the Primal Blueprint and the eating manuals and the foods and the supplements and that whole kind of just new venture for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Primal Blueprint became a lifeway. So as paleo was emerging as an interesting diet that tried to replicate our hunter-gatherer experience and tried to provide unprocessed foods, healthy fats, clean sources of protein, lots of vegetables and things like that. As that diet emerged, I also was looking at other parts of the lifestyle. So I looked at how we move, and I was discovering that a lot of people they're exercising wrong. They're doing even though they're struggling and sweating through 45 minutes on the treadmill, they're not having any progress. In fact, if anything, they're having a setback over the years. And Chase, how many people have you seen at the gym, who are in there diligently every day, 4 or 5 days a week? You see them on the treadmill, you see them on the elliptical, they're grinding it out, they're sweating it out, and yet they still have the same 25 pounds to lose years later.
Stuck in the same cycle of just the same workout, the same intensity, and it's that mindset of I just have to do something from time A to time B, and that will automatically equal the results that I want. And there's no deviation from that. There's no paying attention to the body, what your whole premise is. Hey everybody, I want to take a quick second and just highlight a point that I think a lot of you can relate to. And what I'm talking about is how there's just seemingly not enough hours in the day. One of the ways that I've been able to sneak back time into my day is by using Freshly.com. Freshly is an amazing meal delivery service that has a wide variety of food options that cater to high protein, low carbohydrate, paleo, even vegetarian. All of their food is gluten-free. It all comes 100% fresh, never frozen, and completely recyclable and biodegradable material. Each meal is roughly saving me about an hour of my cook time, and each meal is prepared in about 3 minutes. Every meal option is 100% all natural, deliciously healthy, incredibly fresh, and always gluten-free. And with meal plans ranging from 4 to 12 meals per week, that is an amazing deal for an amazing trade of your time. Freshly is on a mission to help the world eat healthy, feel better, and live more. So head on over to Freshly.com. At checkout, use promotional code EverForward. Save $30 off of your entire initial order. And let Freshly put some delicious meals on your plate, and even more importantly, valuable time back into your day. Now let's jump right back into the interview.
That's exactly right. You have to figure out what it is you want and then craft a strategy to get you there. But if all you do is do the same workout every day, look, the body's pretty devious and the body goes, hey, I don't know how to do this. I don't need to spend any extra energy doing this. And I know that when this clown stops this workout and goes home, we're going to eat more carbs to make up for all of the glycogen that we burned and all the fat that we didn't burn, because the person who's on the treadmill or on their elliptical or whatever it is they're doing, that they're not getting the results, they're not burning fat. They're just recycling glycogen, and then they go home and the brain, which is pretty sharp in this regard, says, hey, we just burned through a lot of glycogen. We better start refilling those fuel stores if we want to do this again tomorrow. And you get on this vicious cycle. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. I can show people how they can get better results. Like 80% of your body composition happens as a result of how you eat. Yeah, you need to exercise, but 80% of how much fat you burn and how much muscle you carry happens as a result of your dietary configuration, how you are able to build muscle, burn fat, and create energy through the inputs, the signals that you get from the foods you're eating.
Oh, it's literally the foundation of everything we do, and we can't build upon that without those contributing components. I couldn't agree more with you.
Right, and the converse of that is, you've heard you've heard this for decades, but now it's never been more true. You can't exercise away a bad diet, and that's part of the problem with the people you see at the gym who are still 20 pounds overweight years into their diligent program, is they haven't gotten the eating part of it dialed in, and so they're just on this again, this literal and figurative treadmill of coming back and burning calories and thinking they did a good workout and having to change their clothes because they sweat so much, and then go home and kind of subconsciously overeat carbohydrates at least to make up for the work they did. And by the way, a lot of people who go to the gym, and this is just, again, bizarre. I'll ask people, why are you on the treadmill so much? Why are you running marathons?
Why are you here?
Why are you here? And you know what the answer is? Because I like to eat. I'm like, seriously?
Doing all that work to just stay the same.
Yeah, or to think that you might deserve a few more bites of something you probably shouldn't eat in the first place. Like, how insane is that?
It's such an offbeat mindset. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, we take people back to, we explain the origins of humanity and how our genes evolved over millions of years to expect certain inputs. And from that, I created a template that I call the Primal Blueprint 10 Laws. And it's, they're simple. Eat lots of plants and animals, avoid poisonous things, move around frequently at a slow pace, but sprint once in a while, lift heavy things, get adequate sleep, play, get an appropriate amount of sunlight, avoid stupid mistakes, and use your brain. Those are things that every human has done for millions of years on a daily basis. And that's what your genes expect you to do. So if you can figure out ways to incorporate that into your daily life, like move around a lot at a slow pace, most people.
Yeah, what does that look like?
Well, to me, it looks like I'm doing this podcast from my stand-up desk where I'm barefoot standing on a pebble mat. This is how I work at my desk all day long. But for the numerous breaks that I take to wander around the house, a lot of times I'll take a call and I'll pace when I'm on a call or go in the backyard. I might take quick breaks, get on my slack line in the backyard. I know not everybody has access to a slack line in their place of business.
We don't all have a Malibu backyard, Mark.
Exactly. But finding ways to move, and if you've read any of Katie Bowman's work,
yes.
she isn't even about. She says find ways to move, but also just change positions. So, like I'm at a stand-up desk, I can raise or lower the desk a few inches. I can lean against my leaning post or stand upright or stand on one leg or alternate stuff and literally fidget throughout the day without having it interrupt my productivity or anything like that. Take breaks and stretch and move around and find like if you're at an office environment, maybe you find some coworkers to go walk to lunch with or to have a walking meeting. Everybody at my office in Oxnard has a stand-up desk, and if they want one, they get a treadmill at their desk. What's called a tread desk. And so I have people doing 8 or 9 miles a day of walking, very slow-paced walking, but walking nonetheless, while they're doing data entry or while they're talking to customers and customer service. There are ways to configure your life so you can accomplish this goal, which is that your genes expect you to move around a lot. And by the way, it's not about burning calories. The body doesn't care if you burn the calories. It just wants to see the movement. It just wants the muscles to go through the range of motion and to flex and to contract and to extend.
Thank you for making that clarification. A lot of times people that I talk to and clients and patients of mine, it's like, oh well, if I can just move around, I can walk, but I'm not burning enough calories. And I think it's a slippery slope to start thinking in that, well, if I'm doing this, it's not enough, so therefore I shouldn't even bother. But I'm glad you kind of made that clarification.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. If people assume that if they're not burning many calories, it's not a good activity. No, it's definitely worth doing. And there are things you can do to burn calories. You can go to the gym and do an interval session, or you can lift, do a heavy weight training session, and that'll burn some calories. Or you could go, if you're a cyclist or a runner, you could go out and put in some miles and burn a lot of calories during that. But again, that's not what is going to get you to the low body fat. It's the way you eat that's going to get you 80% of the way. Yeah, about 20% of it is going to come from the rest. But by the way, the rest of the 20% isn't all exercise. 5 or 10% of that's sleep. Like if you don't sleep right, you'll have an excess of cortisol. Your body will hang on to some body fat.
Oh, sleep is so undervalued. Honestly, it's been a paradigm shift for myself over the past couple of years, and definitely something that I hone in on with my clients and really analyzing, especially if their activity levels are on point, their eating habits are on point. I'm like, well, how are you sleeping? Because if that's not starting your day off, or starting your night off in the right direction, honestly, a lot of the rest of what you do is kind of just against the grain.
It's certainly not going to be as effective. You can do all the other stuff, but it's not going to be as effective if you don't have great sleep habits. And for myself, it's like, I keep my room completely dark. We have blackout shades in our room. I sleep on a chili pad. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's
the cooling pad for the mattress, right?
It's a cooling pad for the mattress. It keeps my mattress at about 66, 67 degrees. It mimics, here we are going back to ancestral health, but it mimics what human bodies came to expect for millions of years, which is to sleep on the cool ground, but covered with a skin or something like that. In my case, it's a duvet, or a comforter. But so I don't even need air conditioning. Even when it's hot outside, I don't need air conditioning because my bed is cool from this chili pad. By way of full disclosure, I'm an investor in the company. I liked it so much, I decided to invest in the company.
Oh, that's amazing,
yeah. Yeah. But I see things like that I think are going to be game changers, and I want to be involved. Because there's so many of these devices that track your sleep, and all they do is tell you had a crappy night's sleep.
Well, what do you do about it?
What do you do about it? It's like, don't make me feel worse. I know I had by the way, tracking your sleep is kind of, I think, ridiculous because I could wake up and tell you if I had a great night's sleep or not.
Oh, you're going to know how you feel, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot, about movement and, talking now about sleep and some various aspects into what makes up the Primal Blueprint way of eating and lifestyle. And speaking of eating, I want to touch base on this keto reset diet, your kind of new contribution to the Primal Blueprint and to the diet eating world. So talk us through, what is this keto reset diet and how is this different from your previous works?
Well, interesting. So the keto reset diet is it's a book that I've just written. It's coming out October 3rd. It's basically the next level of the Primal Blueprint. So the Primal Blueprint is about eliminating sugars and grains and processed carbohydrates and industrial seed oils to the point where you look at what you're faced with as a menu of choices, and it's meat, fish, fowl, eggs, nuts, seeds, lots of vegetables, a little bit of fruit, maybe some root tubers. So maybe you get to 100 to 150 grams of carbs a day. And that's way down from the 300 to 400 grams of carbs that a lot of Americans live on every single day. So the initial stage of getting into the Primal Blueprint gets you to that nice, comfortable, moderate carb intake. Well, there's a whole world that awaits if you want to drop the carbs below, say, 50 grams a day. While we become good at burning fat in the Primal Blueprint, when you go keto, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means, but when you go keto, you start to burn fat at a very high rate. You start to create these amazing superfuels that are called ketone bodies or ketones. Mm-hmm. And our bodies have developed intricate machinery that knows how to burn these ketones and use them as fuel. So we create our own fuel from stored fat, and that offsets our need to take in carbohydrate at all. So our daily requirement for glucose goes way down when you're keto. So keto kind of reflects the term ketogenesis. Your body is in ketogenesis when your liver is manufacturing ketones.
This is a hot topic. Please walk us through ketosis and what really is going on in the body. Yeah, I'm sure this is going to relate to a lot of listeners.
Yeah. So ketones are what the body makes when it senses that there's not going to be a lot of glucose around. The body has this hardwiring that is ready to make ketones by taking fat in the liver and producing this exceptional fuel that it can then send to the brain. So that process, the liver making ketones, is called ketosis. Ketogenesis. That's the creation
of ketones.
Right. Ketosis, which is a term that's been bandied about a lot, basically reflects the presence of ketones in the bloodstream or the urine. And so a lot of people talk about, well, I'm in ketosis, meaning I'm making ketones to such a great extent that I'm spilling them out in my urine, I'm breathing them out in my breath, they're showing up in my bloodstream. And of course, people who are new to this whole thing, ketosis, will brag about how purple their urine strips become when they pee on them, or they'll do a blood ketone analysis and go, "Oh, I'm 4 millimolar, I'm 5 millimolar."
Or I've only had 4 grams of carbs today. I'm in ketosis.
I'm in ketosis. And the answer is, and the truth is, yeah, you're in ketosis, but have you done the work? Have you built the metabolic machinery to be able to burn those ketones and therefore offset your need to continue to eat carbohydrates? So what we're trying to get at with the keto reset diet is we are trying to create what we call metabolic flexibility, the ability to burn fats so well that you don't even need to eat much in the way of other foods. You don't need to eat carbohydrates. Protein requirements aren't even that much because you can literally depend on your own stored body fat for calories for long periods of time. And so a lot of people lose significant amounts of body fat through that process in the keto reset program.
Would you say this would be better suited for someone who is just looking for a general day-to-day dietary modification, improvement of eating habits, or for someone maybe who is very active in the gym, lifting weights? Because I heard you say, low to moderate protein, high fat. To a certain extent, we need those protein calories. We need those carbohydrate calories, for energy, for protein synthesis. So what maybe would be the best person suited for what you're talking about?
Well, first of all, we need the protein, all right? But the minimum requirements for protein change when you get into ketosis, when you're deep in keto. The body, the beauty, like ketones are such a great invention that nobody knows about. And I say invention because they're an evolutionary adaptation. But basically, it's this production of ketones that allowed humans to survive through millions of years in the absence of food. I mean, I'll take you back 100,000, 300,000 years where you might come across a stash of food, you might eat some, mastodon or something like that, and then not eat again for 4 days because there's no food around. Well, how do you survive that? And how you survive that is by being able to, first of all, store fat, and that's why each of us is pretty good at storing fat.
Yes, yes.
Some of us are much better than others.
Better than others, yeah.
But the ability to store fat is only part of the equation. The other part of the equation is the ability to burn fat efficiently and offset the need to eat more food during those 2, 3, or 4 days, or whatever amount of time it is that you're not eating, and to be able to not only survive but to thrive in that condition, to create these ketone bodies where the brain is now literally hyper alert. I think the brain prefers ketones more than it prefers glucose. And so to the extent that you can create ketones and run the brain and offset the need to be consuming carbohydrates, that's not necessary. One of the other things is there's this term epigenetics, which is basically the level of control above the genes. Epigenetics talks about how the genes are turned on and off. What are the behaviors? What are the signaling devices that turn the genes on or off?
Yeah, well, what's the sleeping dragon that lies in all of us to flip on and off that switch to survive or thrive, like you said, exactly.
Exactly. So one of the effects of ketones, and beta-hydroxybutyrate is one of those ketones in particular, that has a profound effect on sparing muscle tissue, on sparing protein. So the protein requirements go down when you are in ketosis, and they go down dramatically to the point that, I mean, I didn't believe it. And so I read the research, I read the science, I kind of got it. Yeah, it makes sense when you do the math, but come on, I've been going to the gym my whole life, and I know that I need protein to build muscle. So I did a 2-month experiment deep in ketosis, and I lost 6 pounds. And I don't know if you've seen pictures of me, but I don't really look like I have 6 pounds to lose.
Oh no,
right?
I mean, you look great, Mark. You're a lean, mean guy, absolutely.
I'm a pretty low body fat guy to begin with, but I lost 6 pounds. Well, here's the irony of that: people would come up to me at the gym and they go, "Dude, you look jacked. Have you put on muscle?"
It's the trick of losing fat makes you look like you put on muscle. It's a beautiful thing.
Bingo. So I didn't lose any muscle. Maybe I didn't put on any. Maybe I stayed the same. Maybe I did put some on. But I didn't lose any, and because I burned the fat, and there wasn't that much to burn, but I got even leaner, to the effect that it looked like I was stronger and bigger. So that was an eye opener for me to, wow, geez, I've cut my calories back because I'm not eating that much, not because I'm trying not to, but because one of the things that happens on a keto reset diet is that your appetite gets mitigated. And that whole concept of what's the most I can eat, and not gain weight, goes out the window. And now it becomes, how hungry am I really? And so, one of the strategies that we use in the keto reset diet, first of all, we take 21 days to put people ease you into the primal blueprint fat burning stage. So you become good at burning fat. You've reduced the carbs from, down to below 150, say. You become comfortable with the notion of not eating bread and not drinking sodas and not doing a lot of that stuff that we know to be bad for you. But after 3 weeks, we have a test that we do. And it's just it's a lengthy midterm exam, actually. And it's a fun quiz, and it's a yes or no answer, and it's based on points you give yourself, and you have to score 75 in order to be able to graduate to the point where you can go deep into ketosis. But you can do it whenever you want, but we want you to be comfortable with it, to be energetic about it, to be jazzed about it, to be enthusiastic and go, holy crap, this is amazing. I feel better than I've ever felt. And so we try to ease people into it, because one of the things I've noticed in the ketogenesis world recently is there's this kind of, you go all in, where you just start from
you get rid of everything and anything you were doing,
20 grams a day, right? And that's just, you can do that, but it's painful, and a lot of people, just about the time that they should be getting some benefits, just kick themselves out. They can't take one more day of it, right?
Yeah, what's the success rate of that? Probably very minimal, because it's taking everything you've known, everything you've done, and dramatically changing it with no kind of midway evaluation like you're talking about. I think that's such a great takeaway from the 21-day reset, is that you introduce these things, these sleep improvements, activity improvements, dietary improvements, and then you touch base again. You see exactly how and where your body is adapting to this, and then from that point on, how do you move forward?
Exactly. So, and I said I did 2 months, and then I went to Greece for vacation. And, I wasn't not going to eat baklava and a bunch of other cool things there. So I was out of ketosis for, 14 days. That's fine. And then I came home and I went back in. And so the point there is, the more time you spend in keto, every day you spend in keto, you're basically improving your metabolic efficiency and flexibility.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So I'm not suggesting you need to spend the rest of your life doing this. Some people choose to. I'm not even suggesting that you spend huge amounts of time doing this. But if you just spent, say, 6 weeks a year and did a reset the way some people do a cleanse, you would be ratcheting up your efficiency, your metabolic flexibility. You'd be better off. And what does that look like? It looks like you're improving muscle mass. It looks like you're burning off body fat. It looks like you've increased the number of mitochondria. So you've got more of these fat-burning machines in you, which you basically forced your body to make, because that's the signaling. When you restrict carbohydrates enough, the body goes, whoa, we're not going to get much carbohydrate. We're not going to be able to make that much glucose from external sources. Let's call upon our internal machinery to make more mitochondria, so we become really good at burning fat in the muscles. And by the way, endurance athletes are just thriving on this keto strategy.
Really?
Oh my God. In the last couple of years, the best 100-mile runners, the world record holders, are all low carb or keto in their training.
Oh, that's a paradigm switch.
It's a huge paradigm switch. And then, once you start to incorporate some of the ketogenic supplements into the racing strategy, I think you're going to see the next level of world records start to fall in things like the marathon, the running, the 26-mile marathon, things like that. It's clearly a benefit for ultra endurance events. Clearly been defined. A lot of people are doing it now, from Ironman triathletes to, again, ultra runners, cyclists who do long distance cycling events. So that much has been clear. But they're also keto bodybuilders. There are people who are.
I definitely know a handful, and they're much bigger than me. Let's just say that. It's amazing.
Well, it's like I said, it's like a superpower when you tap into this kind of a. I would say it's a survival mechanism, except it's not, because it's probably how we live most of our lives for millions of years. It was
just switching fuel sources.
Switching fuel sources. It was more usual to not have fuel than it was to have 3 squares a day. And so we had to have this ability to literally, like one of the theories that I've espoused in the past couple of months is that we don't really need to eat that much food, and that the body is really most efficient when it's not eating food, and that's when it's thriving, and that's when it's repairing all the DNA damage, and that's when it's consuming all of the damaged proteins and fats that are inside the cells. That's when it's killing off the cells that aren't efficient. It's literally doing house cleaning during the times that we're not eating, which is why fasting is so effective for certain people. And then when we do eat, it's like, okay, we're catching up. We're not really thriving when we're eating. We're kind of just catching up in terms of restocking fuel and stuff like that. But the real magic happens literally when we're not eating. Now, that's my theory. So I got a ways to go to prove that. But that's kind of what I'm looking at now as this latest frontier, is that, like, I found that I need probably 35 to 40% fewer calories now than I did even 5 years ago doing the same amount of work.
Wow, that's significant.
It's that significant because one of the things that happens is you become metabolically efficient. In addition to being metabolically flexible, you become metabolically efficient, which means, think about it, you're extracting more energy from fat, which is already energy efficient. You're extracting more energy from ketones, so you don't even need the energy from glucose. And the body is taking the glycerol part of the triglyceride and using that glycerol to make whatever glucose it needs. So you don't even need an external source of carbohydrate. And then it's taking the triglycerides and burning those as free fatty acids. It's a very efficient system that we all have. And, as I say, it preserves muscle, it boosts energy levels, it boosts cognition.
Energy levels. I'm glad you said that. And I would love for you to kind of maybe debunk or prove this fact or fiction around when it comes to ketosis and low carbohydrate, and particularly in relation to the keto reset diet, your most recent work here, this brain fog, this lack of energy and endurance that a lot of people claim to experience when they go low carb or try to go ketosis. How does that play a role in 21-day reset here?
Okay, so a lot of people talk about the brain fog and do so because they're still trying to do like hard anaerobic activity while they're transitioning.
So the exercise intensity is still at a level that
so that's right. That's a big fail for a lot of people. You can't spend your life as a sugar burning machine. And I was one for a long time. I was a sugar burning machine. I was very effective, and I raced really fast. But you can't spend your life as a sugar burning machine and then switch over to getting rid of all sources of sugar and keep working out that way and expect your body to respond accordingly. It takes weeks. So in some cases it takes, we said that's why it's 21 days. That's why we say it takes 21 days to just get to the point where you're comfortable dropping the carbs below the 300 or 400 you have. And during those 21 days, I don't want you to work out really, really hard. You can work out hard a couple of times, but not every day like you used to. So that's one of the biggest issues that people would have is they just don't understand the principle behind it. If I'm going to shift everything around in my body and I'm going to create this amazing metabolic flexibility, I'm going to have to commit to allowing my body the time to upregulate all the enzyme systems and build all the enzyme systems that are going to make it work. I can't try to be doing, one thing while I'm doing another.
I imagine the analogy of a car that you've been running on gasoline for its entire existence. The cars, they're built to run off of gasoline, and then you try to be eco-friendly and you start fueling it with vegetable oil or used kitchen oil, and it's probably not going to work right out of the gate. What do you have to do? You have to upgrade a lot of the machinery, you have to transition a lot of equipment, and you have to allow this process, this time to happen to switch those fuel sources. But then what happens? You can still run that same car off of this alternative fuel. Right. So, and what I would tell you is that anybody who's good at burning fat can also burn sugar really well. Right? There's no either or there. But not everybody who's good at burning sugar is good at burning fat. Right? Everybody's, if you've been a sugar burner your whole life, dependent on carbohydrates, been doing all of the carbo loading and all that stuff, that's great. You're good at that. I mean, I used to race really high numbers at that. I mean, I'm not suggesting that was a bad thing for me to do. It's just that had I known then what I know now about training keto, I would have added the keto to my training program. I still would have carbo loaded, but then I would have been metabolically flexible enough to burn fats at a much higher rate. So instead of going out and running, 520 miles for a marathon and deriving 80% of my energy requirement from carbohydrate and the rest from fat, what if I'm running those same 520 miles and deriving 75% of my calories from fat and only needing 25% from carbohydrate and from glycogen? Huge difference in efficiency, right? And since we're still going to deplete glycogen either way, and there isn't that much stored in the muscles, I'm so much better off being really good at burning fat for whatever workload I'm doing, whatever pace I'm running alongside the guy next to me. If I'm better at burning fat, I'm going to last longer. Full stop. That's just science, bro. And Mark, I think that's the golden ticket right there. You're talking about burning fat. When it comes to manipulating our body composition, losing weight, or even sometimes in some cases gaining weight, we want to become more efficient. Most of us are looking for ways to burn fat. That's such the hot two words in the diet, health, and wellness world is, how do I melt fat? How do I burn fat? So would you say that this 21-day reset, this keto diet reset, book is for someone looking specifically for weight loss, or could it also just be a great source for someone looking to just improve their overall cognition and daily functioning?
There's no reason not to try this. I mean, if you're a type 1 diabetic, absolutely, you got to have medical supervision. If you're a pregnant mother, I mean, I obviously, somebody's got a medical condition. I don't want to suggest that this is going to, that they would undertake this without supervision. But for people who want to lose weight, it's a proven program. It's probably one of the most effective ways to burn body fat and reconfigure. And by the way, burn it off now and keep it off.
Keep it off. That's the biggest staple. Absolutely.
That's the biggest issue, right? So because you're rebuilding, you're building metabolic machinery that stays in place over the long haul, and you're not just starving yourself and then losing muscle mass and water at the same time and losing 100 pounds and then gaining it all back. No, this is a very methodical way of burning through your stored body fat, getting rid of that stored body fat. So yeah, weight loss, fat loss is a great reason to do this. But you mentioned cognition. A lot of people are doing this for the cognition. I have a lot of friends who started into keto for the weight loss and stay there because of the
the other benefits. Yeah,
because of the energy benefits. If you're a type 2 diabetic, I'm going to suggest it with some medical supervision. This is the way you can get yourself better. I mean, this is the way you can literally. I've seen thousands of people get rid of the condition going this route because it's basically you're training your body how to dispose of excess sugar, how to not rely on taking in excess amounts of carbohydrates that convert to glucose. We know that type 2 diabetes is basically a mismanagement of sugar in the bloodstream, and this is a way around that. So there are a lot of people who are doing keto with the purported anti-aging benefits because of this upregulation of protein sparing, this house cleaning effect of having the cells enter a process known as autophagy, where they consume the damaged parts of themselves and not only derive energy from that consuming them, but also clean up that cellular debris that can lead to problems later on.
That's an amazing point, and I got to say, Mark, I'm in my 30s now, and kind of this. I've always had this sense of awareness around what I eat, what I do, and how they both play off of each other. But I've definitely kind of this season of my life right now transitioned out of just the hard and the heavy, true weightlifting, the body part splits, and really just looking for just overall, how do I stay well? How do I feel the best day in, day out? And this kind of reset part of the dietary approach is really appealing. So I'm really looking forward to diving into the keto reset diet, how to reboot your metabolism in 21 days and burn fat forever. And I really think this is going to be applicable to a lot of my listeners, as well as a lot of people in my health coaching practice. So some amazing takeaways here. Thank you so much for sharing Primal Blueprint and this new Keto Reset Diet book, and just your whole outlook and mentality to staying well and being well.
It's my pleasure, Chase. I mean, my whole thing is enjoy life. Our tagline for the company is live awesome.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And so, Mark, one final question I would love to ask in how you live your life and how the products and services that you provide through Mark's Daily Apple, your blog, and through your books and Primal Blueprint as a whole, how does all of this help your audience, help others live a life ever forward?
Well, I guess the first thing is, in order to live an awesome life, you have to have good health. You can't live an awesome. I suppose you can live an awesome life. I don't want to judge, but
maybe lying to yourself a little bit there.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're walking around in pain all day, if you're walking around with low energy, you're not going to extract the greatest amount of enjoyment, contentment, fulfillment, pleasure from every possible moment. So it starts with health. And it starts with getting your diet in line and getting your exercise in line and getting your sleep in line. So, I delve later on in some of my other books. The Primal Connection talks about play and using your brain and socialization, and how that's a big issue with young people today who are so wired but then don't have any social skills because they're not forced to do that. So there are a lot of different aspects of what I look at with my books and with my blog, all with the intention of giving people the tools and strategies to make the sorts of decisions that will serve them better in that effort to live awesome.
I love that, providing the tools and the strategies to help them make the decision that they need to make. That's what it's all about. That's what this self-discovery of your body, because everybody, I've beaten a dead horse with this phrase, but everybody is different, and it's, your works and works of others in the health and wellness and physical fitness worlds that, we all need to dive into, do the self-exploration, apply, and keep what works and discard what doesn't.
Exactly.
Mark, thank you so much for your time today. It's been incredible talking to you about your mentality and your outlook on life and this approach to the Keto Reset diet. We will link all this information to the new book, the Primal Blueprint, and your blog, all in the show notes. And the book will be out now by the time the audience is hearing this.
Cool. Thanks, Chase.
Thank you all so much for joining me again this week. I truly hope that you have enjoyed this episode and its message. If you have found value in Ever Forward Radio, I would greatly appreciate you subscribing to the podcast, as well as taking just a few seconds and leaving it a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. This is the best way to make sure our message continues to reach others. Thanks again, and I hope that this content helps you live a life ever forward.